Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Now, a few days ago I did the bubble technique and showed you how to create a bubble background. Now what I'm going to do, I've decided to come back and experiment a little bit further. We did the bubble technique and I showed you that we made quite a bit of mess because you blow the bubbles, and I had a reasonable amount of water in my container. This was my container. And obviously as you blow the bubbles, some of the water went round the outside. So I thought, well, we can experiment a little bit further. So first of all, I've just got my fairy dishwasher liquid. So the liquid that you just use to clean your dishes with. Just so that you've got something that will create bubbles. So I thought, is there a different way that we can do things? So what I thought is, I've not added any water. So what I thought is, I've got my spritzer bottle, and what if we just add a few spritz of the water? So you can see there, we've got the liquid, hardly any water. So first of all, can we blow bubbles with a small amount of water? So no. So the idea is that we test how much water we can get away with to blow bubbles without making too much mess. So you do need a certain amount of water to get that going. So let's add a little bit more and just stir this so that we can get so you can see now that I've got quite a few bubbles in here. So let's just see if we can pick a bit more mixture up. Let's just stir this a bit more. So for me, what I'm thinking is, can we pick up, you see this bit of bubbles here, this little mix of bubbles here, place that on our work surface, and then use Reinkers to drop into the bubbles. So just dropping the Reinkers into the bubbles themselves, and will you get a bubble technique on the background? So a little bit less messy because you're just blowing clear water. So I'm using Distress Oxides, Wilted Violet, Spiced Marmalade and Squeezed Lemonade, Distress Oxide Reinkers. So let's blow a little bit more. Just stir this up. So you can see I'm not creating big bubbles. What I'm creating is this little bubble mixture here. And then seeing if we can just add the Reinker to our bubbles. And just see if that creates the bubbles. So just adding some of the bubbles just to my surface, and we'll just see if we get a little bit of the bubble technique this way. It's nice to experiment with the same technique. I think it's good to experiment with the same technique. Now you need to be careful on what colours you add, but I'm experimenting, so that's good. But what you have to remember is that the purple and orange can make brown. So I'm just adding these bubbles, so we can just stir our project around. Let's move this here and let's blow. So we're just picking up the bubbles ourselves. So we're just adding the bubbles just in a different way, and I just want to show you how different it looks. That's all I'm doing, is just show you how different it will look, just to see if we get some of those bubbles. And we're going to compare doing this with the usual technique. Obviously you can use a bigger container, you can use a bowl, because it won't come over the surface as much if you use a bowl. So you have to remember these things and how it will differ. And we'll just keep adding some of these bubbles. So just keep blowing. And you're just picking up. So with your water, you're not going to make as much mess, but you're just going to see if the bubble technique will work. So let's just add that here, and we'll keep that on our kitchen roll. And what we'll do is we will leave that on one side, so you can just wipe your mess up. And to be honest, most of my mess is coming from my Reinkers that were used for workshops. They were used for workshops and they did get in a bit of a mess, but I still use them. There you go. So we're going to go back to the usual technique, but what I want to do is, somebody asked me if you could use paint. So let's grab some paint. So we will grab eggplant. So somebody asked me if you could use paint. So I'm going to use a little container. Let's just place this in here, and let's add some water from my spritzer bottle, and then let's add a little bit of paint. So let's use eggplant, like so, just a little dollop of eggplant, and let's give that a little bit of a stir. And before we do anything, let's put some kitchen roll out. What I would say is, definitely make sure that you are prepared. Make sure that your surface is all ready and you're prepared, just so that you get a few splashes. That's fine. But obviously, like I said in my previous video, you can use a bowl, you can use a taller container, So for instance, if I used a jam jar or something, but I like a lower container so that those bubbles come over the top. So look at this from the Reinkers. It's my Reinker, actually carved pumpkin, not spiced marmalade, that is in a mess because somebody sort of messed with the bottle, but there you go. So I've stirred this up now, and let's do a little bit. Can you see you've still got some debris at the bottom? I've got my card ready. Make sure that you've got some nice big bubbles, and I'll just add them, and it does work with paint. Does it also work if you lift them up and place them on your card? Oh yes, it does. So you can just lift the bubbles and it works beautifully. So you can pick that bubble up and it works beautifully. So this is why I've come by and we're creating again. Look at the state of my hands. There you go. So you can either, that's because you can either take your card and pick them up, or I missed those. Let's bring this in again. And actually the paint works rather well. Get those nice big bubbles, and you just, the paint does work beautifully. It works rather nicely, the paint does, I have to say. So let's just clean my hands. If you don't want your hands to get in a mess, then just simply wear some gloves. But this is minimal mess this time. There's not much mess. I was also asked, can you lay your bubbles one on top of the other? So I've just done them. So let's take the bubbles again. And yes, you can keep adding over the top. Also, can you pick up these smaller bubbles like so and place them on the top? So you've got these smaller bubbles. And yes, it works. And I would say the paint works really well. Right, let's just clean this, place them in the container. So let me just show you the bubbles. The paint works exceptionally well. Even the little bubbles look just gorgeous. So the paint works beautifully well. I was also asked, let me grab another container. Can you layer one colour on top of the other? Well, I can't see why not. And if you keep it all on the kitchen roll, it's all contained. And do several backgrounds in one sitting. And I love my YouTube channel because I can take as long as I want. So let's grab some red. Nice. So this is ruby. The other was eggplant. So that's ruby. These are Dina Wakley paints. Let's give that, oh, put some water in first, Tracy. It does help. A little bit of water. And you don't need much water, really. What you do need to do is give that a good mix. And I'm just using a straw. It's not a paper one, it's a plastic one. So give it a good shake around. And I have to say, the paint is amazing. Look at that. That background is just yummy. And this is why we experiment with techniques to take it further. Because look at them little dots, just picking the bits of soap up. So you could do that if you didn't want to blow big bubbles. But you know me, I like big bubbles. So, blow. Now, can we layer one colour on top of the other? That's very light, so let's just mix it a bit more. Yes, you can lay it one colour on top of the other. Can we pick up some of these bubbles and lay them on the top? Oh, yes, we can. Let me show, I'll show you afterwards. Let me just show you on a clean piece of card, just so that you can see. Now, obviously, this is paler because you're diluting that reddy colour. So your dark colours work really well. So just, oh, it just, the paint works beautifully. So look, you can pick up and you can add little bubbles as well. So you can just pick up like so and add little bubbles. I'll show you that in a second. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pick this one up. I'm going to grab some more of these little bubbles. So let's blow a bit more. I can't waste that. Where's that pale one? Is this the pale one? No, this is the pale one. This one. I can't waste them bubbles. Oh, just love it. Right. Let's pick bubbles up and add them on top of the eggplant. So just picking up those bubbles. So you can use sprays as well, but I have to say the paint is working in a yummy way. So let's blow a bit more. You know, it does make me so happy just to see those big bubbles. And I'm just layering the colour. So I can pick this up. So I can pick up some of the small bubbles and you can add them to the background, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Right, so let's have a quick tidy up because we've had a little bit of an experiment now. So we'll take our Reinkers out of the way. So you can use paints, you can use spritzers, you can use spritzers, paint, Reinkers. But I have to say, I think the paints are my favourite. So I'm going to add some of this purple to this one because I'm not wasting them. Oh yes, I have to say, the paints are wonderful. And this picking up the little bits like this is making me very happy. Now, obviously, you don't want to watch me doing this all day, but I'm going to save these because I don't want to waste them. So you can pick the bubbles and drop as well. Let's place all these in a container, and then we don't get in a mess. We want to keep our backgrounds. So what you simply do, wrap your tissue up, clean your surface within a couple of seconds, and clean up is simple. As long as you work on a non-stick craft sheet. And I have to say, the paint is phenomenal. It's my favourite. I'm just trying to think who it was. Just bear with me a second. Let me see if I can find the name of the person who did ask me. Isn't it funny how names leave you? Just seeing if I can see. Bettina, that's it. Bettina had mentioned, I have done it with paint before when I looked back at my magazine article, but Bettina mentioned it and said, can you use paints? And I said, I responded by saying, I haven't used paints, but I've used these. But I thought, no, use the paints, Tracy, and the paints are better than anything. They are the best. Even just dropping little bits of bubbles, just so you can see, these are brilliant. And look where I've laid, I didn't think it had worked, but the red over the top of the purple. Can you see the bigger bubbles? Oh, just adore those. Right, let me just see if I can. Dry these off a little bit. So just clear your desk a little bit, Tracy says, as she tries to get everywhere, so we can actually create just something very simple. But what I would say is, don't waste any of your liquid mixes, because it's just worth experimenting. Also, Patricia Yodel, who's on my design team, she did the background with brushos, and brushos work beautifully as well. But for me, I think the paint wins. I think the paint wins out by far. And just think how many paint colours you might have. So I think that for me, that wins out by far, because I just think they're just wonderful, wonderful backgrounds. So let's move these out of the way. So now you can pick bubbles up and drop colour in there if you wish. But I think just the least messiest way is with the paint. It's just fantastic. I can't get over how I thought it had done nothing, and the red has layered over the top of the purple colour. Just gorgeous. So that one's still a bit wet, which is just a wonderful, but let's dry them. Come on, Tracy, let's dry them. Obviously, if you let them dry naturally, they will continue to sort of pop so that you get more bubbles. But I'm just going to give those a little dry. I have to say, the little bubbles also add a wonderful effect. Just look at that for a background. Oh, am I happy? That is glorious. So shall we use that one? We can let the others dry. Okay, let's turn that over just so it flattens out a little bit. And what? Just appreciate that background. How fab is that? And I'm hoping Janet, hang on. I'm hoping Janet Hills will see this video and see that using paint and maybe picking it up and dropping it down, she will find easier. But just, oh, I can't get over that background. Sorry, I know it doesn't take much. Right. So what if you want to create a very simple card that doesn't detract from that background too much? So let's do that. I can't stop looking at these. I think I'll be doing a few more of these backgrounds. Just glorious. Imagine it in blues and greens. My camera's like, stop bringing it so close, but just, oh, wonderful. Right. And that's why we should always experiment. And if you ask the question, will it work with such and such? You know what the answer to that is now. Give it a try. Hopefully, is my stencil? Oh, it's there. So the answer is give it a try. So if I take my tweet stencil, and then we put the paints away, so we grab them again. And what we're going to do is use the same colours. So use some eggplant, use a bit of sponge. Let's just make this so it's in two pieces. Well, you're not going to do it with them scissors, Tracy. So just use any sponge that you want. I'm going to use a little bit of eggplant. And I'm going to pick this up. Oh, I've got this everywhere. I'm going to pick this up just to create an ink pad. And then I'm just going to use the paint as if I am using an ink pad. Just to give me a little bit of depth to that bird. Then if you want a little bit of red, you don't want too much. So let's take a little bit of that red. Again, create another ink pad just with the red, but make sure that you work it in. And you don't want the red everywhere, you just want touches. Just like you would with inks, just so that you've got your little bird with some of that bubbles in there. Do you know how happy I am? And all you've done is add a little bit of paint. And it's funny because I've actually got, what colour's this? Dark purple on my desk of the Inktense pencil. So let's give this a dry because you don't want to break the card down too much. So then what you want to do is, let's grab the actual cutout of the bird. So the mouse, so I'm going to experiment with some greys so I can use the mouse. Have I got the bird template out? I do worry about myself at times because I leave things out and then wonder why I can't find anything. Is the beard template out? No, it's there. Right, so what I'm going to do then is place this over the top. It doesn't matter what white paint. I'm going to use some, I can't speak, gouache, Winsor & Newton, opaque paint. So let's just, I don't need very much. It's a top quality paint, but any white paint, you get away with gesso as well. Is this soft enough? Let's hope it's soft enough. And the reason it might not be soft enough is because Tracy probably hasn't washed it properly. So I'm going to pick up the gouache and work that in to create another ink pad. And then I'm just going to, if you don't want to hold this down, don't worry. You can just tape it down by rolling a piece of low tack tape just so it's at the back of the beard. And just, the reason I'm sort of dabbing is it'll just give a more feathered look. So like I'm trying to make do with this amount of paint because I don't like to use too much paint. Lift that up and then let's just give this a clean up. You've got the touch of sort of white around the outer edge that just makes that pop a little bit more. That background is truly wonderful. I'm hooked now. I'm absolutely hooked. And I should be doing other things, not this, but there you go. So I've given this a dry. Let's just give it another dry because we've added that layer of white paint. So just dry it from the reverse just so that the card straightens out a little bit. And then I've got the dark purple PC 931 and I'm just going to add a little bit more depth with my pencil. I am not pressing on too hard because I don't want to break the fibres down too much on the beard. So I'm just adding a little bit of colour. And you know, I'm super chuffed with that. Super chuffed. Just, I love how there's some bubbles in the little beard. So let's just give a little bit of shading. And it's funny, I'm looking for the pencil and it's already here. Oh dear me. There's no hope, is there? So just grab your Inktense pencil and you want that to stand out. So let's just blend that out. A little bit more water. Just so that blends out a little bit. And then you can use your kitchen roll to dab. Obviously I've got the white on there as well, around the outside, but just so that your beard just stands out a little bit like he is standing on something. Right, and what we can do then is we can use our little text stamp. Let's move them out the way. So where's that text stamp? I have actually got everything in order. So we can then take our text stamp TE11 background elements, and whatever colour you've used in the background we can use in the foreground. So we can take some of that eggplant. Let's make sure we've got a decent amount of paint, just so that we create an ink pad. Now what you need to do when you're using paint as an ink pad is work that in to the cut and dry foam and then use it as an ink pad. You can then spritz with water a little bit and then just add a little bit of that stamping. So let's add it. I'll obviously lift this up just so that you can see, because it's very fine, and that's what we want. We want a fine touches of text. So I'm just adding a little bit of text here and there. I'm going to lift this up so that you can see. Initially just a little bit of tone on tone, but when you use paint, make sure you give your stamp a good clean. It won't affect your stamp, but it will if you allow the paint to dry on the stamp, because then you've got all these paint layers in the detail of the stamp, so you don't want that. So just make sure that you give that stamp a really good clean. There we go. So let me just show you sort of tone on tone stamping, just so that you can see we've got little touches of stamping. And I'm then going to bring in the VersaFine Clair Morning Mist, just to add a little bit more depth with the text, just so that comes up to the foreground. Now you don't need any more focal imagery. It stands wonderful on its own, and the grey is just perfect. It's not too much, once again, because you want it to be the bird and your background that stands proud. Just love this. The stamp, I never tire of these products. Right, that's just perfect. So now you can still see your bubble technique perfectly. You can see the layers, and you don't need anything more. So let's just place that back. Now I might have the little bird just have something dangling. Let's just place this background stamp back. And then if I take my quirky birds, there's some little hearts on there, these little hearts. Let's just grab these. Now I do want these in the black, just so that I can add another little detail. Like so. Wonderful. I do love a few little details. We will add a touch of white as well. Have we still got that here? We've still got that here as well. So let's just make sure that that is working. And then we can add our touches of white. I love using acrylic paints. I fall in love with them every time I use them. Just beautiful. Then we're going to add some splatters. Just look at these backgrounds. Oh, look at the little bubbles. I mean, the little bubbles on that. Oh, yes, yes, yes. Let's add some white splatters. And then shall we add a little word? So we can use TE4, and we can use that fly free. You can tell this is well used. Place that there. Fly free. And we'll just place that. You can have this as a completely flat card, so you don't have to have any dimension. You can stamp the fly free directly on there if you wish. I'm going to add it to a little piece of white card. And sometimes those little sentiments are just enough. What number do we want? There we go. So we'll just cut out our little bit of wording. There we go. Lovely. So that little pop of white will just work quite nicely just on our card, just here. I love how you can still see plenty of that background, which is really important. Just allow that just to stick on there. Go. We will just add a little bit of shading just underneath. There we go. Lovely. And then just to make sure that that is part of the background, just put some Hooray, I thought I was never going to get there. I was like, I just want to splatter there. Right. Again, don't work with your splatters soaking wet, but you know me by now. So I've now got a black mat. Now I didn't tell you what size this card is. These were already pre-cut, so this is 4 inches by 6 inches. It's Pink Frog super smooth card, 300 GSM. You need something that can take some moisture. So it's 4 by 6, so my black mat is 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. So we're going to add that to our black mat. That's just going to make everything pop. And once you've got it all happily in place, make sure that you press the centre just so that that sticks down. Now, apart from your sentiment, that is all flat. But how glorious is that? There we go. So then we're going to add this to a 5 by 7 card blank. So let's add this to our card blank. which is 5 by 7. Just add this to our background. And what have we learned from this session? We've learned that experimenting is key. Me personally, I've learned that I prefer paints to anything else. And I prefer using the paint and picking bits up as well, because the background, let's bring in this one with the little dots on there. I love picking it up and adding to it as well. So for me, I've learned quite a bit, and I think that card has turned out rather well. The only thing we haven't got is we need a little bit of shading just around the hearts a little bit. There we go. And if you just happen to add a little bit too much, just dab it. There we go. I'm super chuffed with that. So I hope you found this session useful, and I hope you'll give it a go. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.